each page is so full of little details and little moments of wonder that it is one that I keep going back to and I keep rereading, that demands that rereading. It's also quite a difficult one to summarize. So I'm going to hand it over to you. And for those here who haven't read the book yet, can you tell us a little bit about what it is about?
That's a good question. It's also the most difficult question because my answer always changes. But maybe the answer I like the most, it's about a paper boat that is going to travel the ocean. And of course, a paper boat is made out of paper. It's very fragile. It's a story about courage. But this paper boat also is a character who loves the sensation, the feeling of being very, very small in a bigger world. So it's not really just about him. He's not saying, look at me, 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 me. He's saying, don't look at me, look at the world around me. And I think that's the most important part of the book for me, because we already live in a very me world. Like you mentioned social media, it's all about you. We should maybe, people aren't the center of the world. The world doesn't evolve around us. We evolve with all the other creatures around the world. And I think the book is a little bit about that. So the paper boat is not, it's not really just about him. He's just the one who takes you, the audience, through this world.
This book is wordless, but there are a few words in there, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, each one is a link to another book, which is so beautiful because it expands the universe outside of these covers, and it links. So what were can you tell us a bit more about the other words that you included in there?
Yeah, I'm really happy with this question. And like for example, there's a submarine in the book, and the submarine is called Ictineo 4, I think. And there was a submarine engineer a very long time ago. His name was Narcisse Monturiol. I hope I pronounce it right. And he made 2 submarines, Ictineo 1 and Ictineo 2. I think Ictineo means fish boat or new fish. And in one of his letters, he said, with every submarine I'm going to make, it's going to look more and more and more like a fish. So in my book, I took his design, it's inspired on his design, and I made it look more like a real fish, like the submarine in my book has a fish tail, and I named it Ictineo 4, because the French already made Ictineo 3 to honor the submarine engineer in the 60s, 50s, the time of Cousteau, of maybe a little bit later, I don't know exactly. But that's one of the names. Another name is, there's a boat called Architeutis, and it's the boat who trades books for ink with a giant squid. So the Latin name for giant squid is Architeutis dux. So I gave the ship the name Architeutis. Or there's another. The first ship in the book is called Exploratio. That's clear, I think, the meaning of Exploratio, to explore. But I gave the ship that name to give the audience a certain feeling of what the book is going to be about. It's going to be about exploring, and I thought it was a good name for that ship.
That when I was reading it, I felt very much that the journey the boat was on, that the boat is really at the mercy of fate, because there seems to be no way that the boat is controlling their journey. And yet at the end, many of the creatures that the boat encounters end up at the city. And also there's that little house which is lit up like a beacon and suggests a homecoming. And suddenly, as a reader, I wasn't so sure that the boat had no control over his destination after all. And I wondered if perhaps this had been where the boat was heading. So was the boat in control, or were they simply journeying and found their way home?
He's in control, so he can choose to sail right or left. Yep. For example, at a certain moment, he saves a little robot and delivers him to the boat of Fantasturian. So he's in control. He can make choices, and that part is really important for me. It's not delivered to the forces of nature, to the ocean currents or the wind. He makes choices, but he doesn't know where the journey will end in the beginning. Because if you look at the world map on the end, in the beginning, he makes these kind of movements. He doesn't, where am I going? And the further the journey progresses, the straightforward is how do you say it, the course of a ship. Yeah, the further story gets, the more certain he is about how to navigate the ocean.
In The Wanderer, you treat the reader with a great respect, and you show how frightening the world can be. You show that there is danger and that there are things bigger than ourselves which are doing incredible damage and are beyond our control. We see factories pumping out pollution and noxious smoke, and we see seabirds falling from the sky, and the sea is littered with dead fish. We see a deep sea oil rig with a whale hanging from a crane. But you also show that even when things are tough, there is hope. And there's a wonderful spread which shows the Northern Lights or something similar, that moves us to believe that perhaps the challenge of embracing such a dangerous journey is worth taking because of the wonder and enchantment and magic that outweighs the darkness. And I've also heard you say in an interview that fragility should never be an excuse for not trying to do something that is very difficult. Can you talk to us a little bit about this idea of bravery in the face of danger, and how that speaks to the world that people, but especially young people, find themselves in today?
It's true. I wanted to put a little bit of hope in it, but the older you get, the more sometimes I get really pessimistic about things. I got certain ideas that aren't seem. Sometimes I think it's not going to end well, but of course I might be wrong. Like I think overpopulation is a huge problem. It's probably we talk a lot about climate change. We have to solve it. But one of the sources of that problem is that we are our population is growing and growing and growing. So that I think is a very big problem, and I don't know how to solve it. So like paper boats, sometimes I feel frustrated. Those images about pollution and the oil rig, the ships plundering the seas. Paper boat is so small, he feels hopeless. He cannot stop those big ships, and that's how frustrated I sometimes feel. But then the hope part is one on board of the oil rig, on board of the fishing fleet, the destructive fishing fleet, are these robots, and they are doing the damage. But one of them decides to escape in the story. So one of them decides to, no, I don't want to be part of this anymore, and he escapes. And then you can see fellow robots shooting at him. Paper boat is hit in the sail by one of them. The robot's little escape boat is sinking because of all the bullets in it, and paper boat helps him. And the little robot is rescued both by paper boat and Fantasturian. So imagination is going to take him to another place. And at the end, we see the robot back being very thankful towards paper boat for his courage and rescue. So yeah, it's sometimes hard as an adult to insert the hope in the story because of my own pessimism. But towards children, I think it's very important. When I was 15 years old, I thought I would transform the world in some kind of utopia. I was very naive, but that's very good. When you're 15, 18, you have to be, it's naive is the wrong word, but you have to believe in it.
And there's another character, a paper aeroplane that is launched out into the sea by Fantasturian. And it seems that he doesn't, or that the plane doesn't come to a very good end. And I searched to try and see if there was salvation, but is there salvation for that little plane, or was that was that a deliberate death that you caused to this poor little thing?
Well, I think no, he's eaten by the enormous eel.
I hoped I'd got that wrong,
but you know what? You don't get to see it because maybe he made it. I don't know. It doesn't look good for him, but you don't get to see every little bit, every trouble in the world. Sometimes there's a problem and you don't know how it ends. So if the audience would say yes, he made it, then he made it. If the audience says no, he's eaten by the big eel, then he's eaten by the big eel.
So that's a reflection of my own pessimism and negative view by reading that. I thought so. The World and the Wanderer has been described as an alternative Earth, but to me reading it, it felt more like a sort of a fresh look or a childlike gaze at what already exists here on Earth, or perhaps even a reflection of a possible future. There are hybrid creatures. There's a whale lobster standing on the wrecks of ships with a TV on his head. And it's, to me, that brought to mind sort of the entanglements that we see between humans and more than humans now, like, you know, the hermit crabs who walk around with Coke bottles on their backs, or the plastics, which have now become a geological layer in our Earth. And I also read that the 12-headed iguana was inspired by the iguana on the Cayman Islands and the other invasive species that have been introduced by humans. So how much of the book, the creatures and the creations and events, were inspired by what already exists? Or am I wrong and it is like an alternative Earth?
It's everything is inspired of the real world. So, for example, the iguana is inspired of the invasive iguanas on the Cayman Islands. I just smashed them all together, so that's why he has 12 heads. I gave him wings, so to suggest he comes from someplace else. But the iguana also is a nice character in the book. He might look very scary, but he's not scary at all. He talks to the birds are not flying away. The seahorse might be scared of it, but he's not a bad character because it's not the iguana's fault they got stuck on the Cayman Islands. It's our fault. The monster with the angler, the TV on top of his head. On the Cayman Islands, I had no TV. And that's a good thing because then you do other things like go out on a night snorkel and look for octopi. After a while you realize all this time I spent watching series or this or that, I feel a little bit like a wreck. So that's why the monster stands on a pile of wrecks and he lures people in with a TV screen. The sailors are hypnotized by it, watching at the screen, and when they come too close, so I felt a little bit like that. Oh, I'm saved from this TV. I'm saved from being a wreck now and then because I'm doing these other things. I'm going out and explore more.
And so it's clearly a highly, although very gently done. It's a highly political book, and certainly if you read it and also look at your social media posts, you can see it's a sort of a call to arms for people to pay attention and recognize the damage we're causing to the planet. So why did you choose to create a wordless picture book to convey this message?
Because I cannot write.